Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spectrum Sessions, the podcast where we platform unfiltered autistic voices and celebrate our differences. I'm Heather from the National Autistic Society Scotland, and today we're here with Nuala MacDonald. Nuala, would you mind introducing yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Hi, I'm Nuala MacDonald. I'm 17 and I'm on the autistic spectrum. And I was diagnosed when I was about 11, so I've had a diagnosis for a while. And I've just left school as well.
I like to start off by chatting about special interests and hyperfixations because they're a super fun thing to chat about. So would you mind sharing one of your special interests or even a couple if you want?
Yeah, of course. I've had an awful lot. I tend to go quite quickly between one to the other one. I must say though, while I've been at school, it's been quite difficult to have hyperfixations because of studying and whatnot. And I really felt that as well. It's like it kind of takes away a spark in many ways. But I'm kind of, now that I've left school, I'm kind of getting back into that now. And I'm now back into planes and aeronautics. So I'm having flying lessons this year.
Whoa.
Or my gap year. I'm like, it's a whole fixation now and I'm delighted about it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I've had a lot to do with space in the past as well. Kind of like aerospace engineering especially, but also just like, I don't know, planets and the solar system and whatnot.
The reason you're here is a couple months ago, was it? There was a documentary made about your efforts to make Ullapool more Autism friendly. Could you tell us about what inspired you to do that?
So when I was younger, like maybe 5-6 years ago, my family went on a trip to Canada to Channel Porto Basque. And we met up with this woman here who was a retired special needs teacher. And she had worked with the entire village, all the businesses and everyone, to make it more autism aware and autism friendly. And we went there and she gave us a tour. She was so nice to us. She was really welcoming. Gave us a tour all around. And I just kind of, I felt how comfortable and happy I was there and how included I felt. And how like I felt as if my needs actually mattered and everybody was listening to me. And I thought like it's such simple things that they've done there and it would be so easy to do in my own community and it would benefit so many people. And it was just such an amazing thing that they'd done. So I kind of wanted to bring that back a little bit. And I'm still working with her now. I'm still kind of talking to her frequently and kind of talking about what I can be doing here as well. And we kind of share stories, share plans. So it's a really good relationship and it was such a good visit. And I've been kind of talking to people in the village for a while just about like the kind of thing that they think would benefit them, kind of things they'd like to see in the village, that sort of thing. And then based off of that, I've been working with businesses and talking to them and kind of negotiating what can be done in different places and that sort of thing. It's been really, really cool.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing, especially with you being so young. It's incredible the difference that just one person can make to their community, making it more autism friendly. So you're really an inspiration to others who want to do the same thing with their community. How did you feel when you found out that the BBC wanted to tell your story in a documentary?
I felt really empowered. I spent a lot of my life like not being listened to or having people kind of disregard my needs and that kind of stuff. And I felt so empowered and I felt like I had a voice and I could say what I needed to say. But more than that, I didn't want any other autistic child to struggle like I had to do through school. That was awful and that should not have happened. And so it was really good for me to know that this would be seen by people and people would see that and kind of learn from that. And in terms of like the autism friendly businesses, it was really good because people could see what we were doing and then they could hopefully then learn from that and build that into their own communities as well. And so I think that was a really, really good thing. And I think when you approach businesses about this sort of thing, it's scary for them at first because they love the idea and they want to be involved, but there's an element of not knowing how they could be involved. And so if they're seeing these things that we're doing, then they actually have a visual representation of this is what's happening, this is what we can do. And that makes that a lot easier as well. So I think that was really helpful for a lot of people. Yeah,
absolutely. And autism awareness, especially in the countryside and rural communities, can be much less, people can be much less aware of it compared to cities and stuff. So building up that awareness and helping people to understand what they can do to help autistic people is really beneficial work that you've been doing. So as you said before, you were diagnosed at 11. Would you mind telling us a bit about your diagnosis journey and how it felt to get that diagnosis?
Yes, of course. So it took me a long time to get my diagnosis. We've been fighting for that for ages. I was someone who was really good at masking. I'd spend every day kind of acting like everybody else and kind of covering up any feelings that I had. Anytime I had sensory overload, I'd just cover it up. And And so we had like my mom was saying, like, look, this child needs help. Like, she needs something because she's not coping. But when everybody would look at me and inspect me, I'd look as if I was absolutely fine. And so it took them forever to get me a diagnosis. And more than that, people would very much blame my mom. They'd say, well, it must just be your parenting that's making her act like this at home. Not realizing that because I've been bottling it all up during the day and kind of covering everything up, when I got home, I'd then have all the stress to release somehow. And home was like a safe place as well. Mm-hmm. So that would all happen there. And so my mum really, really, like, she had it really hard through that because everybody was blaming her, saying, like, it must just be something that you're doing wrong. So when we finally did get the diagnosis, I think for her, there was an element of like, well, okay, this is forever now. Like, I think that was quite difficult to get over. But there was also a massive relief because she knew that it wasn't her fault. I think it was very much the same for me as well. I'd kind of internalized the fact that I was very different from everybody else, and I was treated differently as well. But I had no idea why. I just thought it was my fault and I was a weird person. So I think I very much got that sense of relief as well. I was kind of relieved that I actually had a reason for being who I was, which was kind of good at the time. And also it gave us access to lots of like support and people that we weren't able to see before we now had access to. And that was incredibly helpful and got me through a lot of stuff. That was really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame to hear that your mum was sort of blamed. Yeah. I haven't heard that before to other autistic people I've spoken to. So yeah, that must have been really difficult.
Yeah, it was really, really difficult. And she really felt that as well. Yeah, because for her, like, she could see that I was struggling and she could see how miserable I was and how much I needed the help. And yet she was unable to get it. So I think that in itself was really difficult for her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And access to diagnosis in the sort of more rural areas is really and there's not too much access at the moment, especially with waiting lists. So but it's great that you finally got that diagnosis.
Yes, that was such a relief. Yeah,
it's interesting to hear that it's a relief because, and that you say that you finally felt like it wasn't your fault, because a lot of autistic people I speak to and myself have similar experience. As soon as we're diagnosed, it's sort of like we feel like we've been blaming ourselves for our behaviours all this time, blaming ourselves because we don't have any other explanation. So yeah, I guess that's a really common experience for autistic people. We feel like it's our fault until we're told otherwise. We're like, no,
and that's such a shame that we have to feel that way. It's such a shame, but
that's why early diagnosis is so key, I think.
Yes.
So that people don't grow up feeling like there's something wrong with them,
No, absolutely, fully agree. Yeah.
So in the documentary, you mentioned that extra support was provided to you in school after being diagnosed. What sort of support was offered to you and how did it change your school life?
So the main thing that was available, or the main thing that changed, was a willingness to actually change things. So I could go to somebody and say, like, look, I'm stressed in this classroom. Can I please go outside and sit in the corridor and do my work? And they'd be like, yes, of course, do what you want. Whereas had I said that, but I did say that exact same thing the year before without the diagnosis, and I was put in detention for an hour because I'd asked to leave the classroom. So their whole mentality changed really, really fast. Like in a split second after I got the diagnosis, they're like, right, okay, this is a whole different situation now. So all of the teachers, they were all so willing to help me. And outside of school as well, I had access to all kinds of specialists. Like I had access to someone who was like a behavioral specialist, I think, because I'd found that every morning I'd have like this surge of anger around 11 o'clock. And we were so confused if that was to do with the autism or what that was. And you know what he found out? From talking to me for a little while, he figured out that I was intolerant to gluten. I don't know how he figured this out. Gluten was affecting my brain like morphine. And so whenever I'd have like Weetabix for breakfast, half an hour later, I'd have a surge of all this like anger and emotion because of the wheat. And I would never have known that had I not had that diagnosis and access to this person. I would never have figured that out on my own, ever.
Yeah.
It would never have been my thought. So that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I would never have thought like an autism sort of specialist be able to, or a behaviour specialist be able to sort of identify that. Yeah. But yeah, there is a correlation between autistic people and stomach issues and that sort of thing, and intolerances. It's really interesting. I don't think it's been studied too much, but I always grew up with stomach issues as well. A lot of nausea in school and stuff, and we never knew why. But then if I look it up now, it's actually there's quite a strong correlation between autism and stomach problems. So yeah, it's quite interesting. That's I don't know why, but
no.
Yeah. So you already touched on this a little bit, but in the documentary, your mum talks about how you're very good at masking.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us just a bit about your experience with masking and how you feel about it now?
Yeah. I think the main thing that a lot of people don't always understand is how exhausting masking is. Like spending the entire day second guessing everything that's first nature, like second guessing everything you say, do, like all behavioral stuff is really, really tiring, and it's really dehumanizing as well, having to do that every day. I've now become really, really good at it, and I'll do that every day without thinking about it, to the point that when I tell people I have autism, it's a real shock to them. They're like I would never have guessed that about you, which is kind of a compliment in some ways that I'm covering that up well. But it's also really sad that I feel like I have to do that. Like that's really sad to me, that idea. And I think because of how I was kind of taught about autism and the environment I was around when I was getting my diagnosis, and before that, kind of the stereotypes that were there, I think I felt really out of place in society, and I felt like I had to hide and cover up, and masking seemed like a good way to do that. And so I do feel like I kind of lost a lot of myself, though. I really did lose my sense of self throughout that, because I spent every day trying not to be myself, trying to steer as far away from all stereotypes as I possibly could. And that was really challenging. That led to a lot of like mental health problems as well, because I'd spent so long trying not to be myself that when it came to a point that I wanted to be myself again, it was really, really challenging to actually find a way to do that, and to step away from all of that, and to actually stop all the masking, which is really difficult to do once you've been doing it for so long. So I think in many ways it has helped me in situations. But it's also just so tiring, and it's not really like it's not something you should have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do lose that sense of self a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you get your diagnosis, you sort of have to think hard about what part of masking is actually me, and what part of it's me pretending, and who actually am I? Am I this part of the mask, or am I just what part of it is me?
Is good as well, because I feel like it does feel like that sometimes. It feels like I'm kind of like a fake person, because I'm not actually being who I am, and yet whenever I am actually my authentic self, I feel like I'm never fitting in anywhere. So it's kind of like between the two, like in like a gray area all the time.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
And if you're pretending to be someone else, then it's harder to know who you actually are.
Well, exactly.
So, yeah, it's a lot of self-discovery after getting diagnosed, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So in the documentary, you were saying that primary school was difficult for you because you were undiagnosed and your teachers had little understanding. Can you tell us a bit about life was like before your diagnosis?
It was very, very challenging. I had nobody understood me, and therefore it was really hard to understand myself, because I wasn't getting any support in that process. And I had kind of these people come in a lot of the time, like after my mom said, look, she needs support in this. She can't do this by herself. I'd have people come in and watch me throughout the day and check my behavior and check how I'd react to certain things. And that was really dehumanizing as well, having these people come in all the time and like inspections and stuff like that. And so obviously when they came in, I'd think, well, I have to be as normal as I possibly can then. And so I'd cover everything up. So they just keep coming back, and they just keep on coming back. And so I know that there was something wrong and there was something happening, but I had no idea what it was, and I didn't have the support to learn what it was. And it was such a confusing thing to go through at such a young age. Like at that age, I think it's like from the transition from primary school to high school especially, I think it's really important to like be confident in yourself, and to have the ability to know to learn more about yourself, because that's a time where like a lot of development happens. And that was a point where I really did not know what was happening. I had no idea. Nobody else knew. I just felt so alone and by myself, and it was really, really difficult.
I think that transition between primary school and high school is such a difficult time as well. And I think especially being undiagnosed, feeling different from everyone, and having
I
that
think
huge change.
that was a time. I think I was diagnosed in P6, so I had a year before I went to high school. But the diagnosis at that point, I still didn't have much understanding of autism itself. And again, that was when people were still trying to find out what support I needed and trying to figure stuff out. And so as they were doing that, I was thinking, well, what do I need to figure out? Like, what do I need to learn about myself for this to actually work? And it was just really confusing transition.
You also said in the documentary that while you were in primary school, before you were diagnosed, you would wonder whether you might be autistic. What was your understanding of autism back then before you had your diagnosis?
I only knew about autism from the people around me. So I had a very mixed view. So all of the people in my class, I think they were, quite a lot of them were kind of talking about all the negative autistic stereotypes. So they'd say like, oh, you're so autistic when somebody would do something. And so I think to a large extent, I kind of hoped that I wasn't, because I was basing it off of these stereotypes. And I think that's also partly why I masked so hard, because I was learning it from those stereotypes. But also my mum was really good at explaining to me that, it's not a bad thing at all. It's totally normal. It's absolutely fine, and that she'd love me no matter what, and it wouldn't change anything in my life, and it would make it easier. So I think it was confusing to hear both sides of those, because at that point, I guess I had a good relationship with the people in my class as well. So I did kind of trust them at that point. So hearing it from them kind of did solidify that side of it as well. But on the whole, I think my mum was really, really helpful at making it clear to me that it didn't matter, that I would be loved and respected for who I was, and it didn't matter anything else. So I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, that's really lovely that you had that support from your mum.
Yeah.
It sounds like she was really, really supportive of you, which is great.
My brother was as well. My brother, I think, has been the most helpful person throughout this entire journey. I think I really owe him one. He has been so good. I remember a time when I was younger and I didn't have the diagnosis, but Mama had taken him aside and been like, look, there's some things here that she can't cope with, and I'm sorry, but you're going to have to just be a bit more patient. And we were building Lego together, and he'd got this new Lego set, and it wasn't a very complex set, but he was quite young, so him building it was a massive deal. And I was helping him, and I got annoyed because the bits weren't matching up properly. So I threw it down, and the entire thing broke. And I was having an absolute meltdown, but throwing it down, that was it broke. That was super annoying for him. And any other person would have screamed, would have yelled. My brother he was like, okay, it's all right, we'll fix it. We'll sit here, we'll fix it. And we did. We sat there, we fixed it all. We had a good time. But that level of understanding at such a young age is absolutely incredible. And I think he has really, really helped me throughout all of this. And I'm so thankful for him.
That's lovely. Yeah. My brother was sort of similar. He was so supportive of me, and he's fantastic as well. So yeah, good brothers on for both of us, I think. Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned the stereotypes as well. And I think my understanding of autism before I figured out that I was autistic and got my diagnosis, it was very much based on stereotypes. The truth and honest information about autism, especially in women and girls, wasn't what I was hearing. I was only hearing stereotypes who sounded nothing like me. And so I couldn't identify it within myself until much later age. So yeah, it's important to tackle those stereotypes for sure.
Absolutely.
So if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was given a lot of advice back then, but I don't feel like any bit of advice would really have helped me through that, because that was really dehumanizing. But I think if I could just hear one thing when I was younger, it would be that it wasn't my fault. I'd want someone to tell me that it wasn't my fault, and that I didn't deserve all of that. I didn't deserve what I was going through, and that I was absolutely fine the way I was. And I didn't have to change, and that I would always be fine and wouldn't ever have to change. But I think the most important thing I'd have wanted to know back then is that I never did lose the strength to keep fighting for what I deserved. I think that would have made me really proud, and that would have really helped me to know that I would one day get the support that I needed. I think that would have been good.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of young autistic people need to hear, that it's not their fault. Absolutely, I would agree. So in the documentary, you help. Is it a coffee shop that you were going
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a deli, like a delicatessen. So it has
Mm.
coffees and rolls and cakes and a number of stuff and lovely
Yeah.
food.
So you sort of visited them, helped them to become more
Yeah.
autism friendly. Um, could you tell us about some other places in Ullapool that you've helped become autism friendly? Because we only really see one example in the
Yeah.
documentary.
I'm currently working with quite a few businesses. I've been working with the high school for a little while to make a sensory room. So they now have a sensory room in place. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to be going to see it quite soon. But I have a group in the village of people as well who are all involved in this, and so we all managed to get funding for the high school to make the sensory room and to buy all the sensory stuff. So I'm really excited to see that and to see what they've done with it. And I'm working with another like restaurant in the village currently as well, and they're going to be doing some stuff. So the ideas we're going to give them is like it's quite a loud, busy place, but there's one table in the corner that's quite quiet and secluded.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to kind of put forward the idea that maybe you could book that table, because then you'll know where you're going to sit before you go in, and also you'll know that you'll have a quiet table. So I think that'll be easy enough for them to do. But we're also really wanting to work with the leisure centre in the village
Oh, cool.
to make maybe like a swim at some point in the week where it's quieter, or maybe there's like background music that'll maybe drown out some of the noise or something like that. And then also the emergency services we're keen to work with too, because
Oh, wow.
we found that in the village they don't have that much understanding because they haven't really had training or anything. So we're hopefully going to provide them with that training, and also encourage them to have like a box of sensory stuff that they can give to kids, like if they need them in whatever moment. And that'll have like a weighted blanket, like noise cancelling headphones, maybe like some sensory toys, that kind of thing.
That is incredible. It's amazing to hear that you're working with your high school, because obviously you've gone through the high school, you've not had the support that you needed at times. Obviously, you got it later on.
Yes.
A sensory room in your high school, it sounds amazing. Hopefully, educating teachers, helping them
Absolutely.
out
I would
as well.
say
That's so useful.
yeah, the high school when I went there, they were really open to helping. They were incredibly prepared to do anything to help me when I got there. But I think they hadn't really, because when I came to high school, I was obviously going through that transition. I was really stressed. I was unsure of where I was, and so I did sometimes kind of like have like sensory overload in high school. And so all they'd see is someone going from totally looking absolutely fine because of the mask and looking absolutely okay, and then the next second having a total meltdown. And so that was really shocking for them. I think they were not prepared for that in any way. And so I think it's been really interesting for them to see all the kind of the things that aren't quite so stereotypical. And so I think that's been really helping them to create the sensory room, and I've been kind of advising them on some stuff to put in that would have helped me when I was there. So we're kind of working together in that sense.
That's fantastic, honestly, and especially as well the emergency services. If you can get to work with them, that'd be great as well. You know, a lot of autistic people will get stopped by the police and things, and it can be a really difficult situation. And the police are often not super aware of autism, and so that would be incredible if you can sort of help them to get a better understanding. So yeah, all of your work sounds absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Have a lot of people in Ullapool seen the documentary, and are they sort of more keen to get involved in what you're doing now?
They actually have. Most people in Ullapool have seen it, I think.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I've had such a good response from it. I've had so many people message saying like, "Look, this has really helped me." I think even hearing like because my mum was obviously telling stories of when I was younger and how that was how I like acted when I was younger, and they're saying that that was really helpful and it helped them to get a diagnosis for their kids as well. And in terms of people being more willing to help, I think it definitely has increased that willingness. I think, as I mentioned before, I think seeing an actual thing being done makes it a lot easier to then go and do it. So when I've come to businesses, I've been like, look, you've seen it, you've seen what they've done, it's really easy, it's simple. And then they're more willing to actually participate because they've seen it being done already. And in terms of people in the village being involved, I think, so the deli that was in the documentary, they've said that there have been people from across all over come just to see them and just to see what they've been
Oh,
doing.
wow.
So I think, yeah, so I think in terms of that, I think it's been helpful for other communities and other people to see that and then bring it back to their own communities, which is kind of the whole goal of this, is to get as many people to see this as possible and then hopefully inspire them to do similar things in their communities and spread the word and spread everything around. So I think it really has helped to do that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Where did you get the idea to make the heat maps? So, just for anyone who doesn't know, you made a heat map for the Delhi, and it was showing the sort of areas of the Delhi that are not very noisy and sort of
Yeah.
safe to go to, and you wouldn't get so much sensory overload. And then you showed busier areas in red, sort of like maybe avoid those areas if you're feeling overwhelmed. So, where did you get that idea? I thought it was great.
Thank you. So I think when I was working with Joan from Canada, I think that was something that she'd introduced there, and I kind of brought back here as well. So I designed the one that the Delhi have hang up in their window, and it's a really good thing as well because it'll also show like a floor plan. So on there you can also have where all the bathrooms are, where all the doors are, where all the exits are, that kind of thing, and that's really helpful and takes out an element of surprise when you go into a shop or go into a restaurant or whatever. So it's really helpful, handy thing, and Joan felt that as well. I think when they put them up in Canada.
Yeah, it seems really helpful, absolutely. What other things do you encourage businesses to do to become awesome friendly other than the heat maps?
There's we kind of have to play it based on the business because there is a limit to what some of them can do.
Mhm.
But the kind of standard things we usually talk about are lighting and music. Those are the two things, like the two main things. So some shops will turn off music for like a couple of hours every day. Like the Delhi have music turned off for an hour every morning.
Mm.
Or some restaurants will have like lights where some of them can be turned off. So we can maybe ask them for like an hour where some of the lights are turned off. It's a bit like more dimmed inside, that kind of thing. But also one of the main things that leads to sensory overload for me is having candles on tables in restaurants. I cannot handle that. The open flames and cannot do it.
Oh,
So if that is something that they do in the restaurant, we'll ask them, can you maybe have an hour where they're not on the tables, or can you ask people, or what we're thinking about with the deli, sorry, not with the deli, with the business that we're working with currently, is that if you book this table at the back, they're already aware that you maybe have a kid on the spectrum, so then they can just ask that table, do you want a candle, or would you rather not have one, or do you want like some sensory toys, do you want this, do you want that? So that's something we can think about as well.
could you tell us about some of the main challenges you face in your day-to-day life due to being autistic?
I think sensory overload for me is a massive, massive thing. It's really, really bad. Like I can like if I go into city for a day, I can manage maybe 10, 15 minutes really relaxed, and then after that it's just like high stress the entire day. Um, and also just on the level of continually feeling like I have to hide from things, like kind of the whole masking all the time, feeling always like I don't belong somewhere, like I don't fit in, like I shouldn't belong there. That's really, really challenging, and it really attacks my sense of self. I think it's really difficult to walk with confidence if I feel like I shouldn't be there. If I
Mm.
feel like everybody is watching me and looking for reasons to like laugh at me, it's so difficult every single day. And I think with these autistic stereotypes that are still around today, they're kind of the less true ones, the ones that are really quite horrible. I think I spend every second of the day really worrying that I fit those and like disliking myself because I might fit those.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't happen. And I think that's really, really challenging as well.
But on the other side of things, do you find that it helps you in any areas of your life?
Yes. So I think for me personally, I've spent most of my life with people focusing on the negatives to get the help I need. It is really hard when everybody focuses on the things that you can't do and that you never will be able to do. So I've kind of in the past couple of years, as an active like kind of like just to act to like help myself out a little bit. Just I've decided to focus on the things that I actually can do,
Mhm.
and kind of just to do justice to myself. I guess I could say to focus on things I can do. So for example, I've got really good memory, and I'm really good at like patterns and stuff like that. And when I hyper focus on things, I can get things done. Like, and kind of the hyper focuses that I do have, like engineering, maths, all that kind of stuff, I'm really, really good at those. and I really do feel like I'm good at those, and I'm really proud of my ability to do those things. So I do feel like now I do, I mean, obviously it is so really hard to have autism, and there are things that are really, really difficult. But I do feel like now more than ever, I've found a balance between accepting the things that I can't do and really like feeling empowered from the things that I can do.
That's great to hear that you're focusing more on the positives.
Yeah.
Because there can be, a lot of positives that people don't always consider.
Absolutely.
As you're saying, hyper focus and
Yeah.
your memory is. I heard you talk about your photographic memory in the documentary. And I was like, wow, like I wonder how that works. Would you mind telling us a bit more about? Can you just like read a page of a book and remember it? Is that how it works?
Pretty much. So I
Wow.
memorized. Yeah. So that's how I got through my English exam. I memorized 14 essays the day before the exam. All of them were about 12 pages long. Memorized them all because I can like. So I'm not very good with words. I have like I'm not amazing at reading or words or that kind of stuff. But what I can do is when I'll memorize like phrases or whatnot, I'll memorize the entire page that this appeared on. I'll tell exactly, like I can visualize the entire page in my head, which means that it takes a lot less energy to memorize things because I can just memorize like a picture rather than a million letters. And that works for like places as well. So if we've like been somewhere and mom's trying to remember something about it, she's like, right, Nuala, what was this in the corner when we were there? Like, oh, I can tell you exactly what that was. Or like with people as well, I'll remember like if they had glasses, what color the eyes were, that kind of thing. Because I can remember the picture and then I can like zoom in type of thing.
Yeah,
like it's quite cool. Yeah,
that is incredible. I've never actually. I don't think I've met anyone with a photographic memory before. It's fascinating,
cool. Yeah,
and it just shows the difference between autistic people. Some people and stereotypes think that we're all sort of the same. But in fact, we are all so incredibly different. And it just shows you, with your photographic memory, you can remember places and stuff. Whereas for me, I've got a terrible sense of direction. Like honestly, awful. So like I wouldn't be able to remember a route to like anywhere I'm trying to go. I'd have to use Google Maps trying to guide me,
That's interesting. Well, the thing that I do find is a downfall of this photographic memory is that I cannot do geography to save my life. I dropped geography the second I could because I couldn't do it because I could not tell you where any country was on a globe because the issue is I've got multiple images in my head, but they don't connect to each other. And so obviously like when you see maps, you'll see them all from different angles and different places. I cannot connect those in my head and I can't compare them in my head. I can see them all side by side, but I'm unable to actually like see how they relate to each other. So I've got like all these like little tiny like images of different places, but I could not tell you how they go together. So I do find it very embarrassing when someone asks me like, well, what part of Spain? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. No idea.
That's really interesting though. Yeah. I can understand how the different images wouldn't sort of click and connect. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So to go back to school, in the documentary you were talking about how you always felt very different to everyone else in school, but you also, I think near the end, you were saying you always found it very easy to make friends, and you were always like, how do I find it this easy to make friends? Because obviously a lot of autistic people find it very difficult. Could you talk a bit about how you were able to form those strong friendships while also feeling so different from everyone around you?
Well, I think I've had lots of different experiences with friendships. I think before I had my diagnosis, I think I was taken advantage of a little bit. I think I had some people around me then who realized that I was getting help with things, realized that I was like, like whenever we'd go on school trips, I'd get to pick the rooms I was in, that kind of thing. So I have had people in the past who kind of took advantage of that a little bit. But at the same time, as I was getting older and growing and learning more about myself and learning my true self and like rediscovering myself as it was, I think I also found people around me that were doing the same. And I found those people and we were able to understand each other and we were able to really like learn about ourselves through each other in a way. I think that was really, really good. So we have such a strong bond with each other because of that, because of similar experiences. A lot of my friends are also on the spectrum and have been through similar things that I have. So I think because of that, we really connect on such a deep level. And I found that around my friends, like I never used to before, but now I feel like I am the realest version of myself around my friends. I really truly feel like myself around them. And I think that in itself is what really, really gives me strong friendships, because I really feel like myself and I feel happy. I'm smiling all the time around them. They're amazing people. And I think it's really that's made it such good friendships.
I'm very happy for you. That sounds
Thank you.
amazing. And it's not easy to find people who you can feel comfortable being
No.
yourself around. But once you've found that, you got
Yeah.
to treasure it. That
Yeah.
sounds incredible.
I
Yeah.
think the issue as well before was that there's a lot of stereotypes saying that it shouldn't be possible to make friends on the spectrum. Like like you're not meant to have friends type of thing. Like according to all the stereotypes. So that kind of gets internalized, and I'm kind of like, well, then how come I have friends? Like I shouldn't really, I shouldn't have these people. Like why are they hanging out with me? So I think that was difficult for a while as well, trying to get over that and trying to realize that they were just going to walk away. Because I think that's the real worry, that you'll wake up and all of a sudden it'll all be gone. And that's like a real proper worry. That's like kind of like panic inducing worry that could actually happen. But it hasn't happened. And it's kind of, I am starting to take it on board now that it won't happen, that isn't what's going to happen. And so I think that's been really, really good to learn. And that's been amazing.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear that you've got those strong friendships.
Yeah.
Your mum in the documentary mentioned that you had two different personalities between when you were in school and when you were at home.
Yeah.
This is a very, very common thing for autistic people. Would you mind telling us a bit about how that contrast was between home Nuala and school Nuala?
Yeah. I was incredibly shy in school. I wouldn't say very much. I think I was really always worried to just say the wrong thing. I was really worried that I'd be laughed at and judged, and I was worried about everything I did. And I think because of that, because of being in such an uncomfortable situation, my anxiety was so bad to the point that I couldn't really speak in class. I couldn't do anything really. And that showed in my schoolwork as well. Like that was evident. And then I'd go home and do the same bit of work and be able to do it a million times better and do it incredibly well and get like top results because I was in a better environment. So I think apart from that though, at school, I was always just kind of like trying to blend in as much as possible, trying not to be noticed. And I'd come home and I'd all of a sudden be this like incredibly strong person with lots and lots of opinions. And that was really weird for people to see. But on the level of like anxiety and discomfort, when I was like a lot younger, from masking all day in school and from being this shy person, I'd come home and everything would have to come out because I'd spend all day being stressed and compressing everything down. In the film, my mum mentioned it like a bottle of Coke. Like you spend all day shaking it, and then you get home and like you take the lid off and everything has to come out. Like that's just what happens. So that's what my mum experienced. So that was really hard for her because she saw that side of me, but nobody else did because I hid it so well in school because I wasn't comfortable to share that side. So all she was getting was everyone was the blame from everybody, and then also this really sad, angry, depressed child coming home from school and releasing everything onto her as well. So it was really difficult for her, I think.
Yeah, again, I can totally see why that would be so difficult for your mum. I would like to touch on a point that you made earlier where you said before you were diagnosed in school you got detention for, was it a sensory overload that you had?
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us a bit about that? Because I feel like a lot of autistic people will get into trouble for their autism, if they're not masking well enough, they will get into trouble for it in school. So I think it's interesting to hear a bit more about it.
Yeah, sadly it was something that I experienced where I kind of ask if I could like leave a room or ask if I could have like some kind of a fidget toy in a room. I'd just be like, they would say absolutely not, no, like you're not special, you can't have that, that's not fair to everybody else. But I also would get in trouble a lot of the time. I'd get in trouble a lot. And so I think that's why I learned I had to hide. That's as sad as it is, as sad as that fact is, I learned from that really young age that I would never get the help I needed if I acted out, if I actually asked for it. Luckily, I have relearned that now. I have relearned that I can ask for things. Back then, from a young age, I just stopped asking because I never thought I'd get anything that I needed. So that is kind of when I went from acting out in school and actually kind of showing when I had sensory overload to just being shy and not saying a thing all of the time because I'd worried that I'd get in trouble or that people wouldn't like me or that kind of thing. And because I had just learned to give up because I wouldn't get what I needed.
Yeah, it's not as if we're masking because we want to. It's because we've been taught that we need to fit in or to not get into trouble. So yeah, it's such a shame. I remember, I think I was in 3rd or 4th year, in English class, we had to do a talk in front of the class. It was like for an assignment or something. And then I did the talk, but I was just like looking down at my page, not looking at anyone because I couldn't deal with the eye contact. And then I got screamed at by my teacher. And it's just like those things that teachers should be more aware of. Like if someone's struggling to make eye contact, don't shout at them because there's probably a reason.
Yeah.
Otherwise they would just do it.
Yeah. My experience as well was when I was like in like primary 1, primary 2, there were a couple of times like I really struggled to go to school because I was away from my mum and I was in an unknown environment and I was really struggling. And so I'd start crying sometimes, which is fair enough because I was really, really struggling. And I remember one time I was taken aside when I was crying and I was put in a room and I was told to cry it out and the door was closed. I was stuck in the room. So just cry it out and then I could leave the room when I stopped crying. And so I think from there I was like, right, like, you know, I'm not going to get anywhere from actually showing this weakness, which I was taught that it was a weakness. So I guess,
yeah,
it's really challenging. It's awful.
Yeah, it's such a shame that autistic people are getting into trouble just for being who they are.
I know.
But hopefully things are changing now and people are becoming more aware. That's what we're fighting to do. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a bit about how you enjoy being out at sea. You were you talked a bit about it in the documentary. Being out in nature is often really helpful for autistic people. Do you find that being out at sea helps you to feel a bit less overwhelmed?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think for a start, it gives me a lot of distance between me and, I guess, in my view, it's of society. Like me and everybody else, we're separate, we're far away. I'm out by myself with like a team of people who I really trust, who I know I can count on. And we're all working together and I feel like part of something. I feel like, you know, I'm not kind of falling behind. I'm right in there with them. And on another level, though, I think, as ironic as it may be, I get very seasick and I'm very scared of the sea.
Oh.
It's like an actual fear. I'm so scared of the sea. Like I hate it. I can't do it. So I think, which is very, very surprising. But I think it gives me a sense of controlling the fear. It gives me a real sense of control and power. And it's like, I'm out here, I'm in this boat, I'm doing it. It's not stopping me. And I think that's really good. And I think it is that power, that sense of authority and control that makes me really good at it. Like I have a bronze world medal. I'm a bronze world medalist.
Wow.
I think it is that sense of like, I'm out here, I'm doing it, I'm going to do it really, really well. That's allowed me to get that far.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know you were a bronze world medalist. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. It's funny to hear that you're seasick though, but I can see how it can feel really empowering to.
I really don't like boats at all.
Yeah.
It's really empowering.
But you're a bronze medalist. That's funny. The next question was, what is something that people would be surprised to know about you? But perhaps it's that you get seasick, but also you are a bronze world medalist. Is it rowing? Yeah.
Coastal rowing. Yeah, I'd say so. I think there's also another thing that really surprises people. I think in terms of school, it might be the sort of two main stereotypes of autism in school. There's either someone who really, really struggles, or they do exceedingly well in everything. And I think the way the exams for me have worked is the exam system doesn't really suit the way my brain works. So although I have really good grades, I don't have straight A's. I think that's something that really surprised. Like when I talk about like, you know, I want to go off and study like aerospace engineering, or I want to do like, you know, I want to fly planes, I want to do all this engineering stuff. And I say that I have autism, people expect me to be like, you know, straight A's, 100% and everything. That's not always the case. And so I think that is always really surprising. And it is quite hard for me to talk about because I think that stereotype of being good at school has allowed me to be proud of something that I do identify with. I think that's kind of given me something like a wall that I can kind of hide behind a little bit. Because it's given me sort of security in that people assume something of me that is somewhat true. But I think it is definitely a surprise to some people because like this, I think the way the exams worked for me is they tested my mental health far more than my actual knowledge and abilities. I didn't work very well with the way that they were done. But despite that, I'm still going off to study aerospace engineering. I'm still right there. I'm still good. But I think that is a very surprising thing that it doesn't just fit into those two specific stereotypes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved the way you put it about a test of mental health rather than actually a test. That's a really interesting point that you've made there. I think exams aren't made for everyone.
No,
And people
exactly.
who are objectively
Yeah.
super smart might struggle in exams just because of the
Yeah,
environment and
it's
stuff.
such it's really hard on mental health as well because of the fact that, like, you do really well in class. Like, I could do everything I was given, I could do it so well, but the second I go into the exam setting, it just because for me, it was difficult to pass the exam. The subjects weren't that hard, but passing the exam was difficult.
Mhm,
And so that then because we're taught how important the results are and how much they define your level of intelligence, it's really, really difficult to then go on from that thinking you're smart when you have that in front of you.
mhm.
So I think that's a real challenge for a lot of people. Nobody puts them
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, what I would say is I was similar, I didn't have straight A's or anything.
Yeah.
I had decent grades, but
Yeah.
then I went to university. For the first 3 years, I had pretty much average grades similar to school. Then in 4th year, it was during lockdown, so I
Oh,
was working from
okay.
home, all my exams were from home,
Yeah.
and, like, you just saw my grades shoot up. I ended up with a first class
Okay.
degree,
Gosh,
when
yeah.
I hadn't been expecting it, and it's just because
Mhm.
I was able to study in a space and do my exams in a space that was
Yeah.
safe, and I had,
Yeah.
enough support behind me, so I
That's
think
amazing.
it's an interesting thing
Yeah.
to think about changing the
That's it.
system for autistic people to help them thrive, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, my hope as well, I think, but when you ask me about special interests, I think, as I said, that really takes a toll when you don't have that. I think that really takes away spark. So I think as I progress to uni, it is going to be in my special interest within those areas. And I genuinely think, I feel like I'll excel at that because I will have that spark again. I'll have found that again. I'll have found the desire to keep on going and to push as hard as I possibly can. And I really do feel like that is a setting where I will do exceedingly well. I think
Mhm.
that will be really, really good. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure you will,
I
absolutely.
hope so.
It's exciting stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Next question, it's quite a difficult one, but what is your favorite thing about yourself?
That is a difficult question. I
Yeah.
think I think one thing that I am the proudest of is my resilience. I really am proud of that. I think I have been through a lot of stuff and I've internalized a lot of stuff. I have lost a lot of myself throughout that. Um, and I think something could be said about becoming stronger because of it. But I don't think I am who I am today because of that. I think I am who I am in spite of it. I
Mhm.
really do think that I've managed to come through and I've managed to really turn myself around and to kind of to really find who I am properly. So I'm really proud of that resilience that's allowed me to do that still.
Yeah, absolutely, and you should be proud of that,
Thank
as
you.
well. So, now that you have experienced both primary school and high school, what do you think needs to change in schools to become more autism friendly?
I think personally, what I found was that it was the diagnosis, the bit of paper that allowed the child to get help. I think there should be more of a mentality of if this kid needs help, give them help. It doesn't matter if they have a bit of paper telling them that they officially need help, just help
Mhm,
them as much as you can. I think that's what I would say. But I think also, I think kids and the other students need to be more educated on autism from including some of the more positive things about it, or some of the things that kind of maybe go against their pre-existing stereotypes of it. Um, so that's what I've been kind of doing as well, going around different schools, giving training sessions to teachers and students to kind of show them the other stereotypes that are there and the other things that you can experience. And the main thing I do is I kind of, even with young kids especially, I let them ask questions about me, myself, like, what do I like, what are my favorite foods, that kind of stuff. Just kind of take away that pre-existing wall between the two, just kind of show that we're the same people, that we're exactly the same. It's just that I have maybe some struggles that they don't, and that kind of thing.
mhm.
I think that's really, really important to take that away and just make sure that everybody feels included and part of the same community.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you talk about how you want to make sure the young people are educated.
Mm.
A lot of people focus on, oh, we need to make sure all the teachers are educated. But at least in my experience, most of my problems in school were actually from my peers not understanding and sort of
Yeah,
not
yeah,
treating me well. And I think that's very similar for a lot of autistic people. So I think um, just having some kind of class on neurodivergence, um, teaching young people at an early age that difference isn't something to be scared of or to try and, you know, bully a person who's different or not
Absolutely.
treat them very well.
Yeah.
It's something that's normal. It's something you should accept, and you shouldn't treat people differently because they act a bit differently,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that is super important, teaching the young people at a young age, and also teaching the teachers, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
yeah. Final question is, what are your goals for the future?
I don't know. I think on a personal level, I really want to become more confident. I think I'm at a point now where I really respect where I'm at now. I think I have really kind of found myself again, I guess you could say. But I really want to kind of become more comfortable and more confident in myself. And I think that will be really, really helped when I kind of start studying again with what I really, really want to, and when I start regaining these kind of special interests and these kind of moments of hyper focus, I think that really will help again. But yeah, I don't know. I think I also just want to help as many people as I possibly can. I really want to kind of spread this whole thing about the Autism Friendly Village and really see how many other communities we can get to be involved in this, and that's going to help so many people. So I think I really want to make it easier for as many people as possible, because it isn't necessary to go through all the struggle that I had to go through. I think that could easily be avoided. So I think that's
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. A lot of autistic people also feel the same when they've gone through a difficult childhood. We want to help other autistic people and make sure that society changes so that other autistic people don't need to go through the same thing. And it's great to know that you're sort of on board and you're that's what your goals are as well. Because it feels like you're going to make a big difference. Yeah, it's been amazing to talk to you today.
Awesome, you.
So much for coming on. If anyone hasn't seen the documentary, have a look on BBC. It's a really great watch. So I'd totally recommend it. But thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thanks so much.